Just four friendly questions, Mr. President. And I congratulate the veteran lawmaker for a very well-researched speech, very deeply researched speech relative to climate change. But, Mr. President, my questions will just focus on four items, Mr. President. Yesterday, we heard during the State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., not only his advocacy for clean energy, but likewise his great interest to revive nuclear energy in the Philippines. I'm not referring to the Westinghouse plant in Bataan, Mr. President, but his notion now is that nuclear energy will provide greater means of support in uplifting the lives of our countrymen. Mr. President, my question is this. Will the gentle lady agree that nuclear energy is clean energy?
Mr. President, let me just state this. Number one, I may not be an expert in nuclear energy. Number two, I am open to hearing discussions and consultations with various stakeholders and experts in science on nuclear energy. Number three, in answer to your question, Your Honor, I have read, I don't know it as a fact because I have not engaged in any way in any discussion on nuclear energy, that nuclear energy is said to be clean. However, what about the nuclear waste? But then again, I am not yet an expert in nuclear energy. In fact, on many occasions, I've expressed my reservation with regards to nuclear energy. But as with any subject matter, I am open to discussion of learning and consultation and perhaps be convinced, but not yet.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now see the absence of the members of the Climate Change Commission. Siguro tatanungin ko sana sila. But, Mr. President, let the records reflect that this representation is 100% in favor of nuclear energy. And from my readings, Mr. President, I've glanced accounts that nuclear energy is zero emission. Zero emission, meaning to say, Mr. President, it won't contribute an iota of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Am I correct, Mr. President? If I may ask the gentle lady from Malabon.
I am not certain, Mr. President. This is something we need to discuss in consultations. I would also like to know not just the emissions, but also the nuclear waste and how it will be handled. At the same time, the safety measures. I know that as a nation, we have had issues with standards of safety in various sectors in our country. So that is something that bothers me. But, Mr. President, as I said, I will be happy to listen in a hearing on consultations on nuclear energy. So I know that the Department of Energy has issued a statement many years ago looking into this source as a possible option. So they've said it is emission-free, as you've stated. Now, how and where will the waste be disposed of, and who will shoulder this cost? We're not sure of that. So how about the timeline, Mr. President? It takes time. It takes a decade to develop a nuclear power plant. So we have the Renewable Energy Law, which was enacted into law in 2007 or 8. I was here in the chamber then, and we helped shepherd the process. But we never closed the doors, and we are willing to listen, Mr. President.
So, Mr. President, that means that the reply coming from the veteran lawmaker is that she is amenable to nuclear energy as a form of energy that can be incorporated in the climate change adaptation program of our country. Am I
Mr.
correct,
President, I I'm opening to listening to discussions, Mr. President. My question is, will it be safe in the Philippines? We are in the Pacific Ring of Fire. We are in an earthquake zone. From the Sierra Madre crossing through Quezon City and towards Laguna, we have a, what do you call that zone? Typhoon, earthquake belt?
Fault.
Fault, a belt? Yes, Mr. President. So, as I always say, let's go back to science. I don't think politicians or even executives should discuss this. No, we should discuss it. But decisions must be made based on science. We must base it on experiences in Fukushima. But Fukushima, they say, has been cured. There are solutions because of what happened in Fukushima. But, number one, are we as a people ensured that the safety standards will be upheld? Ganun bang ugali natin? Number two, do we have such huge investments in this time of pandemic recovery and the climate crisis? Number three, is that the only option? Or do we have renewable energy? Libre ang hangin. Libre ang hangin. Libre ang biomass. Libre ang araw. Libre lahat. Mas mura. Ito po, isang dekada, paro itayo. Pero makikinig po ako sa inyo at gusto ko pong matuto. I'm a forever learner and I want to learn from you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just happen to be a non-scientist but a presumptive chairman of the Committee on Science and Technology, and Senator De La Rosa is nodding his head. He's the vice chairman of the Senate Committee on Science and Technology as well. We are both non-scientists, but from my readings, Mr. President, nuclear-generated electricity, I promise to have you just 5 questions. Nuclear-generated electricity saves on the atmosphere more than 470 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. And that, Mr. President, from my readings, is equivalent to removing 100 million cars from our streets. Ay ano pa kaya po ang mas lilinis dito? Wala nang usok na nanggagaling sa diesel, wala nang usok na nanggagaling sa gasolina, naka-save pa tayo ng ating kapaligiran sa carbon dioxide emissions, Mr. President. So, palagay ko po, Mr. President, pumapayag na rin po si veteran lawmaker at nakikita ko pong tumatango na siya, Mr. President.
Mr. President po, yung lest I be misunderstood or misconstrued, Mr. President, with a distinguished top-notch lawyer from Cavite, I may be nodding, trying to comprehend the new possible source of energy for study and learning, Mr. President. I am much concerned about safety. I am much concerned about nuclear waste, Mr. President. Emissions may be clean, may be zero emission. Paano naman po ang nuclear waste? Gusto ko pong maintindihan po yun. So, I never say no right away. I just will listen. So, yung aking pagtatango po ay hindi po sang-ayon sa pagtatag kaagad ng nuclear power plant. Pagtatango po sa inyo na binigay po nyo ang pagkakataon na pag-usapan po natin sa isang science-based discussion. Opo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I promised the Majority Leader that I will have only 5. This is my last, the 6th. From my readings, Mr. President, as a non-scientist, it has been shown that nuclear energy produces the least greenhouse gas emissions. Number 2, it is 4 times less toxic than solar energy. Number 3, we all know the definition of nuclear energy is the process of splitting atom to produce energy. It accounts for 10% of the world's electricity. Kaya kung tayo po, sangayon po ako kay Pangulong Marcos, kung tayo po ay magkakaroon ng nuclear energy, ay baka po mumura ang kuryente sa bawat tahanan ng mamamayang Pilipino. Bababa po ang kuryente, ang bayad sa kuryente, at magagamit po ng mga kababayan natin yung natitipid nilang pera sa pambili po ng mga pang-araw-araw na gastusin sa palengke at maging sa pag-aaral ng kanilang mga anak. Di ba po, Mr. President, napakagandang panukalayan na nanggaling sa ating Pangulo kagabi sa SONA to have a nuclear-energized Philippines, Mr. President. Pumapayag na po si...
Hindi na po gumagalaw ang ulo ko para wag ako tumungo, para po hindi po nyo maiisip na ako po isang ayon sa pagtatag. But levity aside, Mr. President, I said I am willing to listen to you and experts. I would like to be enlightened, Mr. President. I raised my concerns on safety standards. I raised my concerns on nuclear waste, Mr. President, and the fact that we are in a typhoon belt. We have earthquake faults traversing the north, Luzon, Metro Manila, up to southern Luzon, and not just here, but in the Visayas and Mindanao as well. So it may be suitable in other countries, other jurisdictions, but I am not certain. But I will listen to science.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no further questions. I thank the good, gentle lady from Antique. The proper time, Mr. President, perhaps we can ask the presence of the Philippine Atomic Energy Agency or Commission to clarify all of this. And I thank the veteran lawmaker for her well-prepared speech. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you very much to a distinguished gentleman from Cavite. But before we recognize Senator Gatchalian, I would just like to also put on record, I was once like Senator Legarda. Well, initially I was not in favor of nuclear energy, but the more I've traveled and the more I've met people who are into the nuclear energy industry, my mind has opened up to the possibility of agreeing to it myself. Because apparently in the Southeast Asian nations, countries like Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, and I believe Malaysia are going already into nuclear energy. Baka mahuli po tayo. And if we want to achieve an 8% growth rate, we must have an energy sector that is robust to be able to accommodate all our industries. So, Senator Gatchalian, recognized.